Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Milanistas 360. So, with me, we have Coach Nico from the Defensive Dynamo podcast. And yeah, we've got another episode for you today. And in the world of Milan, the best club in the world and the best run club in the world, according to many fans as well. So, Nico, how have you been? How's everything with you?
Considering everything, I'm doing well. Season's almost over, which is, I guess, a positive thing for most of the fans.
Yeah, so it's been quite a long season, and I guess everyone's looking for it to end. So yeah, just to before we get into the topics, I just want to apologize to everyone. Yeah, last week's pod was taken off the air because of some certain infringements, but we won't repeat it. So I would like to apologize to all our viewers and listeners. So this is something that yeah, we're still learning, taking us through the ropes, but I don't think we have any content that will take us off this particular
Not this
podcast.
time. But Husni, I'd like to add that that episode is still available on X.
It's great. We might want to
So
re-upload it with some
which I've
statistics.
learned over the last week, X, if you're allowed, if you show any copyrighted material, X, you can go ahead and do it. It's a free. There's no restrictions at all on X.
Yeah, I also
FYI.
heard that the Twitterverse or the Xverse, whatever else what people want to call it, is quite the Wild West in terms of the interactions between people. So let's keep that going, guys. We appreciate any comments, anything that you guys would want us to cover, or however you want to reach us. It's through our socials on Instagram, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on X, and quite recently also on Twitch. This is where you can see Nico's channel. They're also titled Dynamo as well, right, Nico?
Yeah, Defensive Dynamo podcast on Twitch. Yeah.
Yeah. So please catch us on all these platforms. So yeah, the first order of the day is actually the game that took place for me. It was quite early in the morning, but for the rest of the world, I think it's just nice in the late evening. This was our thrashing of Cagliari, which I guess after what was it, 6 games of without any wins, we finally decided to hammer a team. Albeit we didn't hammer them in the first 45, although we scored the goal. But yeah, it was quite a few tense moments, particularly after they managed to pull one back when we made it about two, after, when we had 2 goals ahead. Quite an interesting run of play, especially in the second half, where we essentially just walked away with it. So, Nico, your thoughts? What do you think of the game?
I mean, listen, not much to speak about this game. I know there's certain fans out there. I don't know if they're trolling or serious. They believe that, Pioli's back with his tactics. Pioli is on fire after this thrashing. But let's be real. This game, as impressive as it was, we scored 5 goals. It was a team. It was a subpar team, which in this game meant nothing for us. So take it for what it is. It really doesn't mean anything in the long scheme of things. Pioli is gonna be out next season, at the end of the season. It was a great win, but it meant nothing for the team. Maybe for the self-confidence as players, but as a whole, 5-1, great win. We're still in second place, 20 points behind Inter.
Did you see the humorous takeaway from that particular game? So, yeah, initially it wasn't funny, but as part of the Mother's Day recognition, that the players had the surname of their mothers, the family name,
That's right.
printed on the back of the shirt. And after Liao scored, I thought someone had actually edited and photoshopped his shirt, but his mother's surname is Conceicao.
It's correct, yeah. So I'm guessing that's a pretty common name in Portugal.
It is pretty common, but the fact is that That you
out of
couldn't
all
make it
names.
up if you wanted to. The linkage and the rumors behind the name and how our club is linked to this guy, it's unreal. And for it to be shown in the game, especially when he celebrated with the two thumbs up pointing to the back of his shirt, that's a dig at
A,
particular.
a, a little foreshadowing, possibly too.
Indeed, indeed. So I guess that was the most amusing moment of the game. But other than that, I do want to comment in terms of our, you could say, strongest 11 or the strongest attack. Once that gets fired, that possible, capable of blowing any team away. It's just that my comment about the first half was that we definitely didn't look convincing, and there were moments that if Cagliari had just a little bit more quality, they could have actually have scored a few more goals. But yeah, in the grand scheme of
And I'm
things,
surprised, being that they're fighting for relegation, correct?
yeah.
And
Another thing that I was also
they
surprised is
didn't
that Ranieri is still their coach. I thought Ranieri got the sack quite a while back.
me too. But also, which is I wanted to add, is where were our main players those previous games? Where were they during Roma? Disappeared. Leao, Pulisic. This is donuts. Intermatch, donuts, zero, big fat zeros. All right, now they show up on this game that, like I said, subpar team. So it's great that they Pulisic got the brace, Leao did his thing, Tijani as well. But where were they all this time before when we really need them?
I have a question about
You got
Pulisic.
you,
And now that we're nearing the end of the season, I might as well ask it now. Do you think our right wing weakness that has persisted over so many seasons before this has it finally been solved? Can you confidently now say that we have a right winger and this is a
yeah.
position we
I
shouldn't
mean,
worry about anymore?
he is an upgrade over Macias and Saelmakers. I mean, he's a captain of the American team, the U.S. national team. He's the face of U.S. soccer. So he's got a lot of it on his shoulders. He's played for, in Champions League previously, coming to Milan. So he's definitely an upgrade. I mean, for sure. And defensively too, he's not too bad either, actually, on the defensive side of the ball. So I think we're covered on that end.
And if you were to compare, because we saw Chukwueze occupying that right wing position for the first half of the match, if you ask me, I'm sorry to say this. I know he's not a bad player, but I'm still not convinced by Chukwueze. It's just not the same. Yeah. If you see when
No,
Pulisic is on the right, when Chukwueze on the right, it's almost like night and day.
I agree with that for sure. I'd like to see them both on the pitch, or next season, whoever the coach is, to because you need depth on a team, right? If we're going to make these runs and for titles and make deep runs in Champions League again, hopefully, you're going to need that depth. You're going to need both players to perform well, and the next coach needs to be able to give both of them equal playing time, or close enough to be able to actually contribute to the team.
How would you actually rate our midfielders? So Benacer was there, and yeah, before the pod started, we spoke a little bit about his performance. Generally better than some of the other games that he's played this season. However, what I did see is that there were a few interesting long passes by Cagliari that did put pressure on our defense, meaning that they really had to rush to keep up with some of their forwards that were running in quite close with them. But would you say that our midfield also it seems to be a little bit more outstanding? I mean, let's not take anything away. Even Brain Diaz, with that rocket of a shot, quite impressive.
I mean, offensively, we're fine. Midfielders are fine. Defensively, all season have been, they've had their issues where they're leaving gaps between themselves and the back line consistently, not getting back in time, not tracking their players, losing their players. I mean, we saw it with Musa. in this last game. That goal that Calgary scored was Musa's fault. He was, lost track of his man. They got an easy cross from the right side and they scored a goal. So that's the concerning for me. I mean, I see some people online saying, "Oh, look at Tijani is much better than Tonali. He's an upgrade." Yeah, offensively he is, but where is he defensively? He's nowhere to be seen. And maybe under a new coach that can be corrected. I don't know. But it's up to the player to want to play defense. You can't make them at the end of the day. They need to have that in them, internally to want to defend and run and get the ball back in the midfield and attack.
Sure. So now that you mentioned about the coaching situation, let's kick it off to our next segment. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to get into the striker really quick?
Sure.
I think that was a topic we wanted to hit on. Do we think, do we need to spend 50, 60 mil in the next transfer window to get a new striker? Can touch on that.
Sure, yeah. Let's talk about the striker position because yesterday we saw, and I know many others have been speaking about it, is that why is Pioli playing Giroud so much? I don't know if there's some stat that we're trying to achieve with Giroud being on the pitch or trying to give as many goals before he leaves. It doesn't make sense. So we have players, and I know you'll agree with me, Nico. We have players that are in genuine need of playtime. The more time they play with the team, the better they are with building chemistry within the team. But putting Giroud there, and you saw his frustration throughout the game quite a bit, yeah. So there were a few times where him being put under pressure, he seemed to maybe lash out a little bit. So yeah, I mean,
he ripped the other guy's shirt off.
Yes, he did. Yeah. So the frustration definitely is there. But what's your take on the situation with Giroud? Why is he being picked consistently? We have Jovic, we have Okafor can do it.
Well, it's not just Pioli. It's a Pioli issue. It's a lot of coaches you see this with. They tend to have their favorites, regardless of what the stats show or what's in front of them. We see it with even Inzaghi at Inter. He overplays Mitrian all the time, runs him to the ground. And Inter fans, they complain all the time about why does he keep playing him all the time. Same thing with Pioli. He has this thing where this bias, or his favoritism towards Giroud. I don't know if he's just trying to run him to the ground and make him. I have no idea what's the reason behind it, but I agree 100%. Players like Okafor, Jovic as well. I don't know if Jovic was Jovic available yesterday, or what was his deal? I don't know.
Let me check that quick. He might have been on the bench. For those in the chat, if you happen to remember, Jovic didn't feature, but is it because he wasn't available? Looking at the lineups now, and yeah, he was there. He's on the bench.
So there you go. So you have two available two strikers that are in need of playing time. That going into next season, they're mostly likely going to be on the roster, as far as we know. Why not play them, give them that playing time so they can build that chemistry and their confidence for the next season?
But you, Nico, as a coach, and I want to get your take on this, is that there are certain milestones that you need to hit or certain things that you need to prove to tell the coach that you should be ready. Yeah. So I think both Okafor and Jovic have proved that in ways. So firstly, they're available, so they fit. Yeah. At least I hope so. Without dwelling into the backstory too much. But secondly, and I think most importantly, is that they have the stats to prove it. They've scored goals. They've scored important goals. So really, what do you think is going through Pioli's mind about determining which striker is ready to be, you could say, he take a step up, being promoted from not only from the bench, but more minutes, possibly the more starts?
Well, let's take it from what goes on during training, right? This is something that I've learned over the years in different sports, that I've that I've played, that I've coached, especially in soccer. There are certain players that perform really well in practice. They're, during training, they're, hitting on all cylinders, but during the game, when it comes to performing, they don't perform. So I don't know what he's seeing. Maybe he's not seeing them. Okafor, he's not happy with Okafor's training, with what he's seeing during the week, and Jovic as well. That could be one factor to consider. Is that maybe during practice they're slacking, they're not, and Giroud's killing it during practice, and maybe Pioli takes that into consideration and says, okay, well, during this week of training sessions, Giroud was outperforming my other two players, and that's the reason he keeps playing them. That's one option. Or the other one that I think I'm more in turn to think it's the case is that he just prefers Giroud regardless of what it looks like, what they're doing during training or whatnot. I want to play Giroud because I want to do it because he's my guy. And we saw the difference once Okafor came on. What happened with the game, wasn't he? We became way more dynamic. So with that being said, going into, I know everybody wants Seco. He's a big name from Red Bull, and we're also tied to plus we pick up Zerkis from Bologna. Those are the two big names that we're tied with, right? But for me, why not give? And this is I've been going back and forth this all week, Husney. I don't know how you feel about it, but instead of paying out $50-60 million for these strikers, that we don't know how they're going to perform playing at a bigger club, one. And then obviously with Seco, we don't know how he's going to perform in Italy, right? We've seen strikers from other leagues come into Italy before and struggle in the past. Even Henry, and we've touched on this before. So with that being said, why don't we just give the new coach a chance next season and give Okafor and Jovic an opportunity to be our forwards for the next season and see how they do? Because honestly, that's my take on it.
I have a point on that, and it has to do with Okafor. So Okafor, before he came, he's played against us, yeah. For those,
yeah, and you saw what he did against us.
Yeah, and he scored against us. So when it comes for a player from another league, I think is that if I agree with what you're saying, yeah. So we don't know if a player from another league comes to Serie A, but Okafor's resume, if you look at it, he's played at a big team. Okay, fine. Red Bull Salzburg isn't like the biggest team in Europe.
No.
But he has Champions League experience, and Red Bull Salzburg, within their team, they're a big name in themselves. So I had thought that when he came to join us, that transition period for him to be a regular starting side. I'm not saying start every single game because Giroud's still around, but for him to actually get way more starts than what he's gotten under Pioli would actually make more sense because he does have the resume for it. Jovic, you could argue the same. Jovic didn't come from Serie B or from like an unknown team. Yeah? He's played at the highest level. He is a former Real Madrid player. For those who
so that's saying something there too.
Yeah. So I'm just concerned is that if we bring in a player like Sesko, and of course if Pioli then does stay, which is a possibility by the way. A lot of us would want to hate that, but it is still a possibility. But if we do bring in Sesko, would he also face the same issues? You're from another league. You're at the bottom of the pecking order. You're going to have to build your way up. And for the case of Xerxes, I agree with you as well. Coming from a club like Bologna and moving into Milan, the pressure is going to be immense. Someone's going to say, just because you played against us, you played in the same league, you should be able to score like at least 10 goals a game, which is an undue unnecessary amount of pressure on the kid. And we've seen what happens with CDK once you start to apply pressure, and when the press then starts to become critical of him.
Especially for the price tag, you're talking about 50-60 million for each one of those players, right? That's the
Yeah.
price tag right now. So with
And that
that
is
kind of
not
money, for us, that's a lot of money
yeah, and that is
for
not a
this
price
current.
tag for a player who's developing, right? It's got to be ready made.
No,
You got to, I mean,
he's
50
got to be
million. He's got to be doing it already.
scoring 15 goals at least next season.
Yeah.
And why pay that kind of money? Why spend that budget? Because we don't know what the budget is for the summer. Let's say it's 80 mil. Let's just throw a number out there. Okay, you throw 50 mil on a striker, leaves you with 30. We know the deficiencies that we have is not offense. We've been scoring goals left and right this season. A ton of goals. What's been the issue? Defending. Why don't we? And we touched this last week with Max and Gino as well. Why? And I think we were all on the same board. We agreed. Why don't we spend that money more wisely and buy 2 defensive midfielders and a right back instead? Stock up on those positions. Because we and let Okafor and Jovic give them a full season under their belt and see what they can do. Because Okafor has 6 goals this season. Every time he's been put on, he's been dangerous for us. So if you do the numbers under a full season, he's capable of scoring maybe 10, 12 goals. And for what is he worth? I mean, he's not that expensive, right? He's a lot less than 50 mil.
And he's definitely still young. He's only 23, by the way. Yeah, he's not
23. He stays healthy. He's not injury prone. And he's got a season under his belt where he's built some chemistry with his teammates. Give him a chance. Give him a chance at that starting position next year, along with Jovic, to push each other. And if you want to, bring on another striker, get him for, maybe from the Primavera, I don't know, or get some more bargain deal striker just for depth.
Yeah, no, I don't know. Even Colombo, I honestly don't think the kid is terrible, by the way. Yeah?
No, for a third striker, he'd be great.
But he just, no one's willing to take a chance on the kid, and I don't know why. He's from a Primavera, for God's sake. It's not garbage.
Well, listen, but Pioli, but under a new coach, he might give him a chance.
It might be.
Because listen, Conceicao, for example, Porto, they're known to give majority of their academy players an opportunity on the first team. That's what Portuguese football is known for, right? With Benfica, Sporting, those clubs give their promising players a chance at the first team. They give them a crack all the time. All right, and if they perform, they turn them over for a profit all the time. All right, they increase their profit, and then they sell them off to another club. So somebody like Conceicao, who has that experience with giving young players a chance, what's not to say he'll give somebody like a Colombo a chance, or somebody else from Primavera that looks promising as a third striker. I mean, it's about Moneyball, right? At the end of the day, we're looking for bargains. So we have bargains right there. We have players that are not going to cost anything for us.
That's true. And you also have to admit that it's rather strange that we would have to bring in a coach from outside of Italy to give Italian young players, a chance at the league, right? Because God forbid fellow Italians won't do it themselves.
Well, because Italian coaches, and generally speaking, they have this mentality. They don't like giving young players an opportunity. They have this thing. I don't know what it is.
Maybe it's because their own coaches, when they were starting up, didn't give them a chance. They thought, well, I might as well screw someone else up.
Let me just keep screwing the future generations, because that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, this is why he's prepared to throw Maldini under the bus, because Maldini is essentially started the first season since he was quite young. So
Maldini there. I heard Maldini. He's gonna get signed by Monza.
Yeah, he might. Yeah.
I think then it's gonna make it. They're gonna keep him. So, which is smart for them. That's great. I mean, Maldini's. I would have liked to see him back on the team, but that's not gonna happen again. That's. I think the Maldini name, I don't think it's coming back to Milan ever again.
Sad. That's sad.
Which is kind of sad, actually.
Yeah.
considering the history that name has within the team, within the
He
club.
wasn't a terrible player, by the way. Yeah? He's
He
not a terrible
was he
player.
was
Yeah.
he never was given a chance. He was fairly young, and we loaned him out a couple of times, and now Mons is going to have him now. He's going to score 20 goals next season.
Well, good luck to Maldini.
Score a
But
couple of goals against us.
in terms of the names that you've mentioned, which one do you think is the more likely? Because I don't think we're going to make a move for two strikers, right?
No, like I
Who will
said,
you put your money on?
I'm against it, but I think the news everybody's is leaning where we're keep getting tied to strikers. I think the profile that fits the best is someone like Cisco. If
Yeah.
you want to go with your prototypical number 9, that's big, like an imposing physical player, he's the one.
In terms of the profile, and yeah, even when we played against Red Bull Salzburg, and I was speaking to Shane and John at the time about it, is that Okafor, he's a good striker, but he's a different sort of striker. I think you can agree. But the profile that we look for, and we've seen it with Zlatan and Giroud, they fit a certain profile, yeah? So they're
Yeah,
the more senior figures, the hold up play, aerial threat. So do you think Sesko fits the bill, or we're going to try
I think
something a
he
little
does.
different?
Yeah, more than Sirki does. Sirki is more of a false 9. He's not your traditional 9. He's more of a false 9. He'll drop back, get the ball, trying to break through the lines. Sesko is more that hold the ball up. He's more of that kind of forward that we've seen in Milan the last few seasons.
Yeah, well, gonna have to wait until the coach shows up before
But
we confirm the names, right? Because
yeah,
I
we
don't
don't
think
even have a coach
Sesko's
yet.
coming soon. Yeah. Hopefully, we'll get a new coach. All right, Nico. So we'll move on to we got a next segment, yeah, which is the defensive
Oh, quick
dynamo.
thing, Husney, I wanted to take your take on something really quick.
Sure.
Going since we brought up Maldini, so Maldini recently, Syria did an interview with Maldini.
Yes.
So okay, so when it first got released, that link was shared within our group chat by Christian actually. So I tried accessing. I'm like, I want to see this because what's Maldini going to say? Or everybody was looking forward to that interview for a couple of weeks, and it was unavailable originally. So I was like, why is it unavailable? What happened? So I looked at their channel, and it was set to private. That interview was like, that's odd. I mean, why would they set to private? Then it came out in an article that supposedly that Syria was pressured by someone, I'm guessing our management, not to make it available to the public. Now, this is not, we don't live in some communist country. We don't live in North Korea or some, I don't understand the basis of trying to ban a video of an interview because you're afraid of that Maldini's going to say something bad about the club. He already said what he said prior to that. So what are your feelings about that personally? Like in terms of them trying to actually, take that down in a sense.
I think this interview and how it's being played out is also very much linked to his sacking. In a sense, is that when he was sacked, it was a very unpopular move. So a lot of people turned against the management. Then they decided to do a few things, to try and to cover up or patch things over. They got in a lot of players after Tonali or sold and all that. So that helped to placate things a little bit. But as the season progressed and looking at the state that we're in now, which is okay, let's just call it for what it is. It's not terrible, but it's not really a finishing that befits a club of our status. So when the first Maldini interview came out, the damage was done. In my opinion, I think the ownership and the management thought that No one would listen to Maldini at the point. They thought that okay, because we bought all these players, everything is improved. We're all hunky dory. We should be able to make a charge for at least some silverware or get something out of the season, which didn't happen. They thought that no one would listen to Maldini and that Maldini's voice would essentially extinguish itself out. After the interview, it was again the feelings from after his sacking is still reignited, and I think Cardinale and the rest of his goons really were you know couldn't bear the shame of the words of what Maldini said. This is why I think they then decided to act. Uh, you can't really say proactively because the interview still went ahead, but they tried their best really to derail the interview.
Yeah.
So if you ask me, my thoughts, a lot of what Maldini said, yeah, let's be open and clear about it. We fans and a lot of people giving their opinions had already said a lot of the same things. So it was nothing new to the fact, but Maldini them saying it helps to add that little bit more uh, weight behind those opinions. But I'm just not surprised at the saga. If they really wanted to avoid this damage, they should have again not acted in such a corporate manner and said, "Okay, goodbye and get the hell out of here." There are ways to do these things. If you don't want to piss off the guy, I'm sure there's a way. If you don't have to stay around, but you appreciate him for what he's given and where he's gotten the club, especially after the Banter era, there are ways to do it. But that is not the easiest path that Redbird wanted to go on. But so yeah, you reap what you saw. You piss the guy, and he's gonna say what's on his mind. If that hurts you, then you just have to live with it. Censorship, as you've said, it won't get them anywhere. Yeah?
No, it
It's
doesn't,
only
and
gonna make things worse.
it makes the club look small.
Yeah.
It's like you're, at the end of the day, it's like honestly, trying to censorship an interview. Honestly, it just looks bad. It at least makes the manager look bad worse than it is, and you're making enemies out of more fans. And in my opinion, can we really blame Maldini for not showing up to games either? Because I think that was in the interview. I think they had asked him, "Do you go to games?" He's like, "No, I don't go to any more games at San Siro."
Yeah, why
So
would he? He's not welcome, essentially, right?
he's
What
not
sort of
welcome.
welcome did you
So
give him?
why would he go there and do what? And knowing he's not welcome by the club, it hurts him deep down. I'm sure he's hurting. This is a club that he gave his life and blood to for years, and his father to boot.
His son is still paying for the
Yeah,
family name, by the way. Yeah.
exactly. And this is can you really blame him at the end of the day for not showing going to home games? For what reason? If you're feel unwelcome by management, and for 100%, and I think there's some people that still have to go, well, Maldini, he was at fault. He should have never opened his mouth. He also, why did he show up when he showed up as a director when things were promising? Why wasn't he part of the club when they were struggling? Things. It's like at the end of the day, he's a person. He made the decisions that he made, and you know, at the end of the day, this what management did, in my opinion, was just poor. But that being said, um, like you said, they see what they're up. The management is showing its true colors going forward, and they have a lot of things to make up for the fans at this point. And hopefully during the summer they do the right thing.
Yeah, they try to make up for it. They try to patch over all these cracks. The appointment of Zlatan and yeah, a lot of people. Yeah, I'm not gonna mention it. A lot of people saw this happening. I had said it as soon as Zlatan came. When Zlatan came, I didn't have my expectations very high because my take on it is that Zlatan was with the team last year and we performed poorly. So having Zlatan back, do you think that has a bigger impact than when he was actually with the team, as in part of the team last season? I'm sorry, I don't think our players are listening to him and have actually outgrown Zlatan. So my take on it is that wasn't the right appointment. But from the eyes of Redbird, he might have taken a chance because he's essentially got no idea, right? He's got no idea with how to handle a big club. Toulouse is not AC Milan, by the way. And I hope that might. So I'm sorry for any Toulouse fans that might be listening. That might work for Toulouse or whichever club that Jerry owns, but it's not going to work for us. We see through those things. It's insulting that the owner thinks so little of you that he thinks like, okay, let's give this dog a bone and he'll shut up for like the rest of his life. It doesn't
Well,
work that way.
that's what I'm afraid of. They're gonna buy this shiny new toy in the offseason. Look, we got a striker, we got Cisco. Well, we spent $60 million on a new forward. But overlook the defensive issues. We don't need defenders. We're set. We're set. And
You know,
then going next season. Oh, look, we're scoring goals again, but we're giving up a ton of goals as well. But hey, listen, we got a new striker.
that might happen, by the way, Nico. Oh, we got Sesko. Oh, guess what? Toulouse
Great.
thing.
Yeah,
That might happen, by the way. That is one of the scenarios.
it's possible, which is scary.
Yeah, it's scary. And if for those who still continue to blame Maldini about okay, he's not perfect, let's face it. But let's look at the facts. Pioli was meant to be an interim coach. Maldini and Massara were the ones that spoke to Elliot to say that, hey, let's take a chance on this guy, eh? He's done well so far. Let's not pull Ralph Ragnick or whichever names. So that's I could say that the sign of a good management saying that okay they know when they've made their mistakes, but they're able to recover and learn from the mistakes. So because Pioli is the interim after Gianpaolo, and why would you want to change your coach like what 2 or 3 times in like space of 12 months even?
No, you need some consistency.
Exactly.
But Pioli's run his course, and got to move forward at this point.
Yeah, but this management's bankrupt idea, so can't say much about what our direction is going to be. But I know that you're going to agree with me on this, Nico. We want to be proven wrong, right? We want to be the guys who's like, okay, we say what we say, but we were wrong because Redbird. I'm going to laugh when I say this. Redbird managed to get whichever coach, or even with Pioli, to win the league, win the Champions League. Yeah, with a bunch of nobodies. Fine. We would actually want that to happen. Don't get us wrong. We don't want the
Of
club to
course.
fail so that we can be proven right. But most of the time, we're right. That's unfortunate.
Hate to say it.
Okay, Nico. So are we going to go to Conceicao?
Let's do it. Let's get into the next segment. Yeah.
All right, everyone. So this is the. Let me pull this up. The graphic for those who are listening. This is the graphic for the Defensive Dynamo. So yeah, let's pull up this screenshot. You want to go through this one first, right?
Yeah, let's go. Let's go through the formations first,
Sure.
and then we'll get into the assist. All right. So obviously the hot name that's been thrown around is Conceicao from Porto. All right. So obviously we talked about it last time. He does various formations, something that our current coach doesn't really do. He sticks. He's reactional when he changes formation when we're in trouble or on a losing streak. But Conceicao, he has 2 formations that he's kind of very that he's put down at Porto, right? That he's very familiar with. His teams are very familiar with playing his players. So I decided to look at our current players and where they fit, or any players that we're looking to pick up next season. All right. So this is so we're going to look at the 4-4-2, right? That's the one formation that Conceicao is currently playing at Porto. So going into next season, obviously you see Sportiello at goal, thinking that I think management's going to look at Magnan's salary. He's asking for more money, and then obviously you got to take into consideration his injury. I mean, Mike's been hurt consistently. He gets hurt during warm-ups. It's an issue. Sportiello's been doing actually pretty well in a time. So I think Sportiello would be the keeper in Conceicao's formation next season, 4-4-2. And now let's look at our center backs. Let's look at our 4-back. So Kululu, he's been performing well. And his backup, we've been tied to Thiago Santos, right? Yeah, 4-3-3 as well. All right, that's a good point, and but his 4-4-2, we're seeing that as well in the 4-2-3-1, right? 4-4-2, that's what Conceicao is. That's like his base formation. Another name we're tied to for as a right back is Diego Santos, currently at Lille. He's a promising player. He's very dynamic with the ball, good defensively. Center back pairings. We have Gabia and Tomori. Then Chow backing up Gabia. And the reason I'm looking at Chow staying, he does have potential. I know he had a rough patch during the season. He made a lot of mental errors, but I think with the right mentorship and the right coaching, going to next season, he can actually improve on these things, especially on the mental part of the game. And we don't need in my opinion, we don't need a center back. I know there's a lot of talks about picking a center back, somebody like Buongiorno or someone like that, improving our center back position. But honestly, I don't think there's any reason to spend a ton of money this next season on an unknown center back or make any big changes, right? So that's why Gabia, Tomori, I'd like to see Simic as a backup. He's a promising center back from the Primavera. He showed some promise during the season in a few games that he's played. Theo on the left side, Alex Jimenez, another player that we've seen a couple of times, made a couple of debuts. He's a promising player, similar to Theo, has a similar profile, can make those runs up and down the pitch. He's pretty decent defensively. Now let's look at our midfield. So Pulisic, obviously he's been solid. We have Chukwueze come off the bench. Midfield, this is where things are going to change up. Personally, for me, I think this is where we need to focus our offseason and our funds in, is upgrading our midfielder, especially defensively. Because Benny's not cutting it. He's injury prone, like we spoke about before. And I'll keep Dejani, right? Because Dejani's more of an attacking forward. So for me personally, I like to see us focus on Sofian Amrabat, currently at Man U, and Ricci, who's an Italian who plays in Italy, right? Ricci. I think he's only like 22 years old, really good player. And when you get into Sofian Amrabat, Ricci, and Diego Santos' profile in a minute as well, get into like a deeper dive on those players.
Hang on, Nico.
What's
So
up?
what about
Yes.
our other depth players like depth? I can't use that word strictly, but let's call it loosely. What about Pobega? What do you think there's a place for Pobega in this
I don't
squad,
see
or
there's a place for
even
Rubega.
Ruben Loftus-Cheek?
Honestly, the only thing that he offers, and people always go back to, is he has a cannon of a shot. Okay, but how often has he scored goals for us? So this is the thing. Personally, I know he's one of our players. All right, he's a Milan player. But we can't get caught up on this like fact of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not favoritism, but in terms of, we can't think of, well, he's one of our people. We need to play him because he came up the ranks as a Primavera.
The Calabria excuse, right?
Yeah, we can't. We need to get away from that, and that's something that we've seen with other teams, like even like Klopp is really so. Klopp's biggest deficiency that he has, he falls in love with certain players, and he feels like he needs to stick with them regardless if they're performing well or not. And this is something we can't afford to do. Right, just because he's a Milanista or Calabria's a Milanista, Pobega in this case, if you're not up to par, either loan him out and see how he does, or try to sell him. So that's why he's not in. Even with Adley too, that's another person I wanted to jump on. Adley, as much as we've loved him, he's been a warrior. He's he's thrown these, he's done everything he can to, he was patient last season, being on the bench so much. Let's be real. What does he offer? He's had a couple of decent games. Defensively, he's slow. He doesn't offer anything defensively. And occasionally he'll make a decent pass, but overall, he's not, he doesn't have that potential to be a starter for us. Maybe for a mid, tier team in Italy, but not for Milan. Not if we want to be successful again. So that's the reason why you don't see him on this depth chart as well. But you do see Musa there. So for me, Musa, defensively, he has issues. I think offensively, he showed some promise. He's good with 1v1 challenges, has some pretty good speed. Need to work on his vision. But I think going forward, like I said, with the right coaching, right people around him, he can develop into a pretty decent player to back up Tijani as well. And obviously on the other side, we have Leao. Leao's not going anywhere. He's gonna, if Conceicao comes, he's gonna be coached by a fellow Portuguese player, coach. That says a lot to have something in common, right? Which goes a long way. And then our forwards
This is why
would
below
be
his name inside the graphic is
and look
Portugal.
and
Maybe you need
his
the entire
surname.
Portuguese national team to replace it on the left wing.
Exactly. Yeah. And then forward, Okafor, and then Sesko. I know we said that earlier. We just said we don't need strikers, but realistically, it looks like we're being tied to him regardless. That's so I decided to put him up here. And then Jovic off the bench. So this is for the 4-4-2. This is what I would like to see most potentially for next season is what's going to happen. Yeah, I agree. Listen, Andon, I know we're tied for those players. They're both top. Lacroix from Wolfsburg and Brazier from Brest. They're good players. But Gabia has proved himself this year. I mean, Husni, would you agree?
Not only this year, and I'll keep saying this, yeah, Gabia was an integral part of our unbeaten run. That's not an act that you can keep for
No,
a
it's
very long
not.
time, meaning that you got a solid defender. So he has that within him. And I hope everyone has forgotten about the stinker of a game that he had against Fiorentina all that while ago and actually cut this kid some slack because he's been great for us at a
Great.
time where we need him the most.
And Husni, this is important as well. You need to build chemistry. For me specifically, something I was really big on as a coach when I worked on with my team was building a chemistry, especially with my back line, my two center backs. They need to be able to trust each other. One, they have each other's backs, know each other's weaknesses and strengths, which Gabia and Tomori have built that relationship over the last few games. All right, and they both have different. Like I said, Gabi is good in the air. He's a physically strong player.
And he scored, yeah.
And he scored. I don't care about scoring. People I could care less if he scores goals. I don't want my center back scoring goals. Play defense.
I'm not complaining about it.
Break the lines. Play forward balls. Send it up the pitch. Make sliding tackles. Be physical. Shut down the opposing striker. That's what I want from a center back. Tomori brings a different profile. He's got pace. He can push up the line. He can press, recover those balls, and push the ball up. So you have two center backs that we have currently on the team that have their own strengths and weaknesses, and they have chemistry. Why break that up next season and start from the beginning? We have known qualities. We know what we have with these players. Why bring another center back that they're decent, but then you're starting from scratch because they're both young. So let's play devil's advocate. Let's say we get rid of Tomori and you bring in these center backs. It's going to take a while for them to build chemistry with Gabia.
But for Tomori money, if he does go to the Premier League, that's a lot of cash.
It is. But then are we looking to move forward because all the other teams are going to be improving next season? Sure. Do we want to keep restarting from ground zero? That's what I'm trying to say. Because if that's the case, if we want young, why not give Simic a chance during the off season?
Nico, this comment here from Gunardi, and thanks Gunardi for joining the chat here. He writes, if Conceicao is chosen, Mendes, Conceicao's agent, will help to get Ugarte from PSG. I'm not too familiar with PSG. Is this a name that we should be looking at?
So I did see him mention the other day. So I was actually going to cover Ugarte. He's a midfielder for PSG. So obviously he's got skill. If he's playing at PSG, they have some skilled players. I was going to cover him on this next Defensive Dynamo podcast sometime next week. Get into a little bit more of him. He's a good player as well. I don't know what he would cost. Somebody that we would look forward to maybe possibly pick. He would fit in with us, but I'm not too familiar with him. All right, so let's get into the 4-2-3-1. That's another formation that Conceicao likes to use as well. So you're going to see similar starting 11 that we saw before. The only difference is, in this case, for me personally, I like to see Santos as a starter. Being the only reason I like to see Santos because he's more of a wing back than Kalulu. If you've seen a couple of Diego Santos highlights online and his games, he has more of a he could take on players more than Kalulu does. So that would make sense for me. Is starting Santos in this formation over Kalulu, keeping Gabia, Tomori, Hernandez, Amrabat. You got your double pivot. You got Amrabat, Tijani. Amrabat providing that shield. So, for example, if Diego Santos making his runs up the pitch, you drop Sofi and Amrabat back a little bit to cover that space, right? Or you move Gabia over as well. All right, because then you got Santos pushing up, Hernandez pushing up, Amrabat pushing back and forming that back three with Gabia and Tomori, that back three line. Chukwueze, go ahead.
Nikos, sorry, for Pulisic's position in the number 10, there
Correct.
are options here because we have Loftus-Cheek, who I think can do it quite well. Of course, not.
But we've seen it, but to kind of when we've seen Pulisic and Chukwueze play together, well, how's that turned out for us?
Yeah. But because Chukwueze hasn't got many starts when Loftus-Cheek was firing on all cylinders.
And I do like the chemistry, but let's focus on defensively. The only reason why I have Pulisic over somebody like Loftus-Cheek, because defensively he offers more on that number 10 position for me. Loftus-Cheek, for me, for his physicality and how big the guy is, doesn't like to play defense most of the time. He's not good defensively. Doesn't have it in him to play defense. But Pulisic, from what I've seen this season, he does recover balls in the midfield. He likes to fight, even though he's small in stature compared to Loftus-Cheek. He does fight. He has that grinta that we need.
I have a bit of a question. You could say this is a spin on things. If Diaz was offered to us again, will you take him for the number 10 role?
No. Well, listen, we all seen what Diaz can do for us. He's had some decent games with us, right? He's had some, but what was his biggest deficiency? Getting pushed off the ball. I know he's performing well in La Liga, but let's take into consideration La Liga is a different league. It's not as physical as Italy. It's a much more wide open game. It's a different type of football in Spain than they play in Italy. We have more physical defenders in Italy than they have in Spain, and that's a fact. So Diaz, he's great. He fits in well with Carlo and that team. But for us, it's gonna be a consistency again. We're gonna have a couple of good games. We're gonna score a couple of goals, and it's gonna disappear for 5-6 games. Sorry, Diaz fans out there. All right. So diving into each play that we spoke about that I'd like for Milan to pick up next season. So let's focus on the midfield first, because this is what we've been lacking this whole season, is a defensive midfield presence, something that we had during our run when we won the Scudetto a couple years ago. So the first one up, Samuel Ricci, currently playing for Torino. All right. Most importantly, he's only 22, so he's fairly young. And this is where it's really important. If you look at his strengths, and the games that I've watched, these are pretty accurate. He's very good at ground duels, which is super important for a defensive midfield, winning those balls back in like really good parts of the field and transitioning them to offense, all right, giving us chances to score goals. Weaknesses, he doesn't have much. Christian. Do we want to touch base on Christian's profile? I don't know. All right, Christian. Anyways, going back to what I got distracted by Christian.
Sorry, quick shout out to thanks Max for tuning in. Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks, Max. So back to Ricci. Looking at his heat map right now, and this is you have this. Anytime you have to look at heat maps, you have to provide some context by looking at heat maps. It doesn't tell you the whole story, right? Because anybody could run around the pitch without a purpose, right? It's like a chicken without a head. But in this case, Samuel Ricci runs with a purpose on this pitch. He's taking up all the space, especially defensively, to recover the balls back, to cover and win the balls back on those ground duels, or those 50-50 balls as well, which is a big factor for a defensive midfielder. All right, so that's the Samuel Ricci. Let's move on to Armbat. All right, well, let's go to Diego Santos. Oh, Armbat, yep, okay. So Sofian Amrabat, currently at Man United, which we know is just a piss poor team. We haven't seen the best out of this guy. He's only 27. He brings a more veteran status than Ricci, which for me is important. So you would have two different profiles. Amrabat would be, in my opinion, more of a mentor to Ricci, showing him the ropes, and helping them to stand the game a lot better, right? Do you want to touch on this question real quick?
Yeah, well, I don't have an answer for you, Gunarji.
So it all depends on the next coach, because unfairly, we don't know what the reason is. Pioli has just he's kidnapped. He's hiding Teresiano somewhere. And it's funny, somebody made a missing persons poster for Teresiano online. So yeah, I don't know what this fate is. It all depends on the new coach, if that's given a chance. I don't know. But let's get back to Amrabat. Being said, so obviously he's like more veteran presence, would teach, in my opinion, Ricci the ropes, help understand more, to be a more positionally aware player on the defensive side of the pitch. And let's look at his strengths. Long balls, so this is something important as well. So he offers something a little bit different than Ricci. He's good at long balls, which is great as well. So if you're recovering the ball as a defensive midfielder, he's able to find those wingers, Leao, Pulisic, and our strikers with those long balls to break the lines. Weaknesses, discipline. I think that has something to do a lot with this current team. Man U is just a really bad, toxic club. That could be a big reason for his discipline issues. But I think with the right coach and the right team, those things that can be fixed as well. And most importantly, let's go over to his heat map. Same thing with Ricci. He covers a lot of grounds, which is another big factor for a defensive midfielder. So going into next season, if somehow Milan could pick up these two players, a 22-year-old, a younger player, and a more veteran player for that same position, you're adding depth and a little bit different profiles, but you're also adding teeth to the midfield. And that's what we need. We need that grinta, we need that fighting spirit and that grinta and that teeth in the midfield for us to be competitive again. If we want to make a run at the Scudetto, maybe not next season, but in the following season. Oh, wow. Okay. All right, let's get into, I'll take it over. And Where's the other one? All right.
Santos, yeah.
Let's go to Santos. All right. Last player on the list. I touched base on him before on another Defensive Dynamo episode, briefly on him. So this is one player I'd love for Milan to pick up for the right back. Out of Lille, he's 21. He's got this kid's got a lot of strength.
Yeah, that's a
Portuguese too. So hey, he could be best friends with Leao, right? They can hang out together, make rap videos next season. All right, listen, on his strengths, this kid has a lot of potential upside. Ground duels, tackling consistency. So he's consistent. He's really good positionally. He's aware positionally on the pitch, how to take on, defend those players on that wing, especially those left wingers, which is like the most, dangerous players on most teams nowadays. Weaknesses, he doesn't have too many. Also, like I said before, on the offensive side, he's really good on those 1v1s. He's technically really well. He's got that Portuguese spirit, baller. He does have those tricks up his sleeve to take on players, something Kalula doesn't have. Or Calabria, And I think Calabria is going to be on his way out, obviously, because he's asking for too much money. Looking at his heat map, he does cover a lot of ground, so he does take those opportunities to go up and down the pitch. All right, so it looks like my co-host, his battery is dying out.
I'm sorry, guys. I didn't bring my charger, so I've left 2%.
It's fine. Okay. Hey, Hosni, I'll take this over.
Sure. I'm sorry, everyone. I have to log off. Just the final words from me is that please appreciate everyone for tuning in, and please follow us on our socials. We'll be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're on X on both channels as well, and of course on our Instagram. But yeah, Nico, take it away. It's with you.
All right, take it easy, Hosni.
See ya.
All right. So let's get back to our last profile, Diego Santos. So you can see from his heat map, which is, like I said before, he takes players 1v1. He likes makes those runs up and down the pitch. He's got those skill sets for that kind of wing back position, right, as well. He covered a lot of grounds. All right, so these three players, Sofyan Amrabat, Ricci, an Italian, is also good to add that roster spot for the Champions League, right? Something to cover that base as well. And Diego Santos, for me, are the most three important signings we need to consider this offseason. I could care less if we get a striker. All right. I mean, look, at the end of the day, like myself and Husney said earlier, would it be great to have a striker? Yeah, but do we need to spend $50-60 million on a striker when we have two strikers currently on the team? One, Okafor, who's done damage, right, for us. Scored, I think, 6 goals this season. And we got Jovic. I'd rather see us just beef up the midfield, something that we're lacking. We've seen it all season, where their midfields have been non-existent, supporting our back line. Ali hasn't done it consistently enough. He doesn't have it in him, right? Who else? We don't have much. We're missing that figure to kind of be that, especially if you're playing in mid-block. So, for example, Conceicao, right, at Porto, when they played Arsenal, and we showed a clip. That was a clip that we showed in the last episode with Max and Gino, and it got banned. We got banned from UEFA for showing that, but it's on X still if you want to see that. We pointed out on the mid block, something that Conceicao likes to do, mid block. You need a midfielder to marshal your midfield, the other midfielders, to be that captain, to show them where to be positioned, which players to take away, which players to cover. We currently don't have that midfielder to lead the midfield on a mid block, to be that orchestrator, to be that conductor. Somebody that Sofyan Amrabat has in him, and Ricci has the ability as well. All right, something he can learn from Sofyan Amrabat. All right, and they both are a huge upgrade over Adli. All right, and Musa doesn't have it either. Musa's got the speed, but doesn't have that positional awareness to be a defensive midfielder. And I'd rather see him be a backup to Johnny, in my opinion, because he's more attack minded. All right. Just a reminder as well, everybody. You can also check us out on X as well. So you have a couple options. You have us on YouTube. We have us on X and on Twitch as well. All right. So there's 3 different platforms that you can watch us live. So plenty of options for everybody out there. All right. And if you're watching that X, do us a solid. Jump over to the YouTube channel. All right. The link's right there on X. Super easy. And, subscribe, support us, like our videos, hit the notification bell as well. All right. Listen, for me, this has been a good episode. I'm hoping that you've gotten a better understanding of what we could possibly see next season with Conceicao. That's the coach I really want us to get. I know Conte's been thrown around, but Conte, for me, he's a dinosaur. We need new ideas, fresh ideas, instead of just keep rehashing the same coaches over and over again in Italy. Right? And obviously Conte's way more expensive. All right, we can't afford him. I can't see us picking up, signing that kind of coach. All right. And, we see his formations, the 4-4-2, the 4-2-3-1. That's currently what our team is familiar with playing under Pioli, but not under the best circumstances. All right. And most importantly as well, I wanted to touch base is this. All right. For me, another important factor that we need to consider and keep in mind is if Conceicao or any other coach comes in, who would they bring in as their assistant coaches? Because usually they bring in 2 coaches, right? Assistant coaches, right? Which is important. So currently, the 2 assistant coaches that he has at his staff is Vitor Bruno, and the other guy is, let me look at my notes, is Suramana Dembele. So we know Dembele's name, but I don't know if he's related to the other Dembeles in the world. But those are his 2 current assistant coaches at Porto. I tried looking at some more data on these 2 assistant coaches, see if they coached before, what kind of philosophy they have defensively. There was not much information online. So for me, as a defensive, coach, something that drives on defense, because that wins championships at the end of the day, and something we need to improve on, right, as a team, obviously, because we can score goals. Let's be honest. That's not the issue. Will these assistant coaches help bring something else in defensively? Will they be able to implement or influence the team defensively, able to teach them things on the pitch? Because as a coach, and I coached, my assistant coaches were immensely helpful, especially during training sessions, because one person can't see anything. Right? You can't focus on everything the whole time. You need assistant coaches to look for other things during training, during games, right? Be that second pair of eyes or third pair of eyes, whatever the case is. So, and especially too, is building a relationship, because as a coach, you may have an issue, a beef with some player, you can't build a relationship, but your assistant coaches can reach that player and talk to them and, help them develop as well, because a coach can't do that by himself sometimes. For certain reasons, you just don't have your personality with that player doesn't fit, right? So that's really important. We need to consider who will Conceicao bring in as assistant coaches, or any other coach coming into Milan, right? Because, for example, look at Borussia Dortmund, right? we picked on this last time during my special, right? And let me pick up the graph. So last Defensive Dynamo episode, Chelsea touched base on, let me see if I can pick it up. All right, here we go. Boom. So Borussia Dortmund, we've seen their epic run, right, during this Champions League, especially defensively. And the big reason for this is, in my opinion, the addition of Nuri Sahin, right? Nuri Sahin, he coached at a Turkish club, Antalyaspor, and he has really good defensive tactics. And if you want to learn more about his tactics, check out my last episode. It's available on X as well, right? Defensive Dynamo podcast. So once he added into his team, Terzak, at the beginning of this season, I think, they've gotten so much better defensively, Borussia Dortmund. And we're seeing that with their run, right? They've gotten to the finals of the Champions League versus Real Madrid, which nobody saw coming. All right, most football fans, pundits, experts didn't see that coming at all. All right. So I hope whoever the assistant coaches is coming in has that defensive mindset, that experience to bring Milan to that next level so we can compete. All right, especially defensively. We need to lock that defensively, get the midfielders in place, had some depth, add some serious teeth, some razor teeth, right? Razor sharp teeth, some grinta, get that back, get to some of that Gattuso spirit back, because that's what we need, that fighting spirit. So we can be, just compete with Inter next year, compete with Juve. We may not win the Scudetto next season because that's going to be a turnover with the coaches and so forth and some of the players, but to push them and not be 20 points behind Inter. All right. Because I don't want to see that happen again. I want us to go there and fight with them tooth and nail the whole season and maybe win a couple of derbies and not get embarrassed, because that can't happen again. We need to fight. Even if we don't win them all, not get blown out, compete, make them push, make them sweat, go into the 90th minute and have them to, or take them to PKs, do something. But just not roll over and play dead and let them just roll over and win the title in front of us in San Siro. All right. So that being said, that's all I got for today. Thanks for everybody tuning in on YouTube, X, Twitch. All right. Have a great weekend. All right. Enjoy your Sunday. All right. And listen, we've got a couple of games left. Just keep up the spirit. Let's keep supporting the team. I know, even if you don't watch the games, that's fine. I get it. I haven't watched even yesterday's game. I watched the second half. I didn't watch the whole game. But, listen, we're always going to be Milanistas regardless of what happens, right? And hopefully our management does the right thing this offseason and moves us in the right direction. All right. Till next time, Forza Milan. All right. Take it easy, everybody.